Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with you on this December the 3rd. Thanks for joining us here for Alaska weather tonight. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather situation as it can change very quickly around Alaska. You can easily access your forecast on the phone at 1-800-472-0391. That is a free phone call to you provided by the National Weather Service Alaska. Simply listen to the voice prompts, type in the number that you need for your part of Alaska, and save that for the next time. It'll go a lot faster, and you can use that number anytime you want. Again, a toll-free call anywhere in Alaska. That's the Alaska Weather Information Line. Of course, our information's online at weather.gov/Alaska. You can find information on social media as well. On Facebook, you've probably already found NWS Alaska, but you can follow NWS Fairbanks, NWS Juneau, or NWS Anchorage, as well as tsunami.gov. and the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center. All places have information for you, and sometimes it's shared a little bit differently. It might make it easier for you to view, read, and understand. So follow away and comment. Ask questions there if you have a weather question as well. If you can't find what you're looking for, feel free to find me at david.snider@noaa.gov. That is my email address. You're welcome to use it. Send pictures as you have them. I love to get information about your part of Alaska and love to see that anytime you're willing to share. Let's take a look at what's going on in southeast tonight. Winter weather advisory is expected around the Juneau area. Mainly Mendenhall Valley is looking like it could see about 3 to 6 inches of snow. That'll take you from tonight into early tomorrow morning. And it looks like it's going to be a fairly narrow area that may see snow, a little bit closer to downtown, probably a little more rain. But your snow is going to be right there on that dividing line between a little too warm and maybe just cold enough to see some accumulating snow again, especially for the Mendenhall Valley. A winter weather advisory tonight will take you into tomorrow morning again. And then we move out west, and for southwestern areas of Alaska, tonight through tomorrow, again, also looking at some snow and blowing snow, maybe as much as 3 to 6 inches of snow, but the wind's going to be a little bit more of a factor here in southwest as we go ahead in time tonight and into tomorrow. There is still snow falling around parts of south central Alaska, especially the forelands of the Kenai Peninsula and into the southern Susitna Valley, and light snow around the Anchorage region. This is not meeting our limits for saying this is an advisory or a warning right now for snow, but it is snowing and it may be inconvenient to you if that piles up. And if it's going to pile up, it looks like it's probably going to be right there around the northern parts of the forelands and maybe some western parts of Anchorage as that continues tonight and into tomorrow. So enjoy it while it's here. We all know that winter seems to be kind of right on the fringe so far this season, doesn't it? As we look at the satellite picture today, here's that area of low pressure sitting right across the northern Gulf. It's working with the disturbance sitting right over the Kenai Peninsula, and that hasn't been moving for the last 24 hours, which is really fun. The snowflakes are very tiny, but boy, if it does that all day, it sure starts to add up a little bit, doesn't it? Now, that band stretches all the way into the middle Yukon Valley and out toward the northwestern coast. And we have several other waves behind that. One of these sitting across the western Gulf and the North Pacific, stretching a little bit of snow and rain out across parts of the Alaska Peninsula and eastern sections of the Aleutians. Another chunk of this puzzle sitting right across southeast today as this band is working its way north and east. It may cool off just behind that. You've been seeing snow showers passing through from time to time today. The sensor downtown looking like it's showing rainfall there, but in other parts of town certainly has been snow. Out across the west, Adak to Shemya, another powerful area of low pressure is shaping up and kind of getting its act together. It's still in its organization stage here, and as that moves eastward into the western Bering, it looks like it will start to deepen there and probably approaching the 940, 950 millibar level perhaps by the end of the week. It is going to be a force to be reckoned with as that gets a little bit closer to south and western Alaska. We'll watch the winds switch around to the south. The winds will come up for the Aleutians, the Pribilofs, and parts of the west coast as we get toward Thursday and Friday. It will bring some more snow, and as that works its way into south central and the interior, it's going to bring some weather changes with that as well. So stand by for more on that one, but it looks like for right now, the main factor across the interior is just cold. High pressure, generally a dry sky, not a whole lot falling from the clouds that you have. Temperatures have been pretty chilly, and it looks like that'll be the case as we go through the rest of the week with high pressure firmly in command of the northern Yukon and parts of the interior. We do have a little bit of snow falling in a few of the sensors today, but it doesn't look like it's anything substantial right now, just maybe some flurries passing through, if even really snow actually hitting the ground there. It just could be some of the ice falling out of the sky, maybe a little bit of diamond dust where you are. Watching low pressure here across southern parts of southeast, 1,008 millibars there just on the northern coast of Haida Gwaii. Another low here across the northern Gulf at 994, and another part of that wave sitting just off the coast of Cape Newenham at 1,008 millibars. A trough extends up the west coast, and again, generally drier, colder air out to the west. And then here is our organizing area of low pressure at 985 millibars. As that marches eastward tonight, you'll see that warm front passing through Nikolsky. Not quite to Unalaska and Dutch Harbor until early tomorrow morning. Behind that, showery but breezy southwesterlies coming in, and drier westerlies behind that already to Attu. Low pressure across the northern Gulf stretches into a front sitting right along the southeastern coastline and the outer coast. We'll watch for some pockets of cold air, perhaps right over the Mendenhall Valley, and if that's the case, there could be some snow piling up again. A winter weather advisory for the Juneau area because of that, and maybe a few snow showers across the interior, but again, it doesn't look like anything significant north of the Alaska Ridge because this is really dry and really cold air. Areas of fog up and down the west coast, it looks like, as we get into your Wednesday. That should break up just a little bit with a little bit of a south breeze developing across the west coast communities. Snow will set up ahead of a front that's marching across the water here at 970 millibars, the low still anchored out across the Kamchatka Peninsula. Cold front will be working its way across the central and eastern chain. Again, that breezy southwesterly flow moving its way into Nikolsky and Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, and starting to push into the King Cove False Pass area there, and probably making its way into the Aleutian Range as well as the Alaska Peninsula with some snow and maybe rain mixed with snow at times. Low pressure sitting out here across the northern Gulf at 1,009 millibars, and the front that we had across southeast is falling apart, but that moisture and that unsettled weather is still going to stick around and circulate for a while. This has not been moving very quickly and really can't because we have a strong area of high pressure just to the north. So the only place it's going to go is south or fall apart. And we have this area of low pressure out to the west that's marching in very quickly, so that may give it a little bit of a nudge. Areas of rain and snow will still be found across parts of southeast and Prince William Sound as we go into Thursday. Notice our big wedge of cold air here across the interior is staying put. 1,030 millibars, it doesn't have to move for anybody, and it doesn't look like it's going to. At 985 millibars, south and west of St. Paul and St. George, and north of Atka, you have our warm and southwesterly breezy air trying to work its way into the Alaska Peninsula there, all the way up toward Pilot Point and Port Heiden. Still working with areas of moisture across southwest that should produce snow and probably some blowing snow at that. Maybe as far east as Lake Iliamna, Nundalton, and areas around Kodiak, looking at increasing chances of snow by Thursday and Friday, and all the way up toward St. Lawrence Island. Notice this wedge of cold air is keeping that snow from moving all the way up the west coast. There may be some pockets of snow across the Chukchi Ocean and also across Demarcation Point and across the eastern Beaufort, but the main activity is going to be down here in southwest, and the main focus for that low pressure system is going to be right across the southern Bering. In the meantime, this moisture does look like it's going to build into parts of south central Alaska and reconnect a little bit more to some wetter parts of the atmosphere that are out here across the central and northern Pacific. So we'll watch and see how that shapes up toward the end of the week. We'll still have some kind of unsettled weather here across the northern Gulf for the most part, and it still looks like most of the interior is going to be dry and just plain old cold. How cold, do you say? Well, 23 below in Fort Yukon tonight, 24 below in Arctic Village and Aktivik Pass. Not quite so bad as you go up in elevation. Anywhere from 5 to 15 below across the Arctic coast, 6 above in Nome. That's +6, +2 in Shishmaref, 15 for Makoriak, 30 in St. Paul, 30s for most of the chain. You may see some areas there around Sand Point getting into the 20s and lower 30s for the most part, though it looks like many areas out west will be above freezing. Kodiak, 25. Teens and 20s for south central. Talkeetna with a lot of snow on the ground, 13 degrees. Southeast, you're looking at temperatures right there on the nose of freezing, 32 degrees. And again, that's going to be a big player. And do you see snowfall tonight around the Juneau area? Temperatures on Wednesday, anywhere from 20 to 22 below. For high temperatures for Arctic Village, Fort Yukon, it's going to be cold stuff in Eagle, 15 below there, 9 below in Fairbanks. That's the way you like it in winter. Teens for most of South Central, 32 in Kodiak. You can monitor the air quality, though, if you're in one of those low spots in Fairbanks. 6 above in Utqiagvik and 8 above for Nome. Southeast, looking at temps in the lower 30s up north, lower 40s down south. A quick check of Thursday morning, 33 below in Fort Yukon, 10 in Homer, 23 in Kodiak, 32 for Ketchikan. And temperatures in the afternoon still looking mighty cold there in Fort Yukon, 26 below, 7 for Talkeetna.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And on to aviation weather now. IFR concerns will start out around Norton Sound and into the interior of the Seward Peninsula and just into the upper end of Kotzebue Sound. And you'll notice widespread IFR from the Pribilofs out toward the western end of the chain, out toward Kiska Island. And then hit and miss marginal conditions around Bristol Bay, Sand Lake, all the way to the west around Cold Bay, Falls Pass, and King Cove. And around the northern parts of the Gulf, watch for marginal conditions around the Kenai Fjords and into just about Resurrection Pass and Moose Pass. IFR conditions there across the higher terrain of southeast, marginal on the inside, and then a lot of VFR across the Alaska Range, the interior, and the North Slope. So use that while you can. As you get into the afternoon, watch for IFR to develop just inside of the North Slope communities, probably at Kasuk and eastward toward Prudhoe Bay and Ned Horse, and certainly offshore. Marginal concerns will press a little bit further southward, out toward the Chukchi Coast and into the central and eastern Beaufort coastlines. IFR is expected from St. Matthew to Macoriac and Nunivak Island, all the way to the western end of the Alaska Peninsula, and then probably a little bit of a break around Dutch Harbor, Nikolsky, and west toward the central chain, and then VFR conditions out even further west than that. IFR will linger around the boundary range of the Wrangell-St. Elias region. Marginal conditions across the inside passage and up toward Chilkoot Pass and White Pass, as well as Haines and Skagway and the capital city. A little bit of VFR back in play for the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound for the most part. Outside of Hinchinbrook entrance, you'll probably run back into marginal conditions there. IFR returns with a vengeance across the central and northern parts of southeast, still looking at VFR to MVFR conditions across the southern parts of the Panhandle. And then with the next wave of low pressure organizing and pushing into the west coast, we're going to start to see IFR back across the YK Delta into Bristol Bay. And really the bulk of the chain will go down toward IFR levels there by Thursday morning. You'll also see another wave right across the North Slope communities, especially the Beaufort Seacoast, and Wainwright to Barrow, probably Inukiavik, probably looking at IFR concerns there by the morning. That'll linger there through the afternoon. Look for a little bit of improvement across southeast, especially on the southern ends there. We're still looking at marginal to IFR conditions across the northern end, all the way up toward Yakutat. And then IFR still widespread across southwest through the central and eastern chain and all of the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak. With a look at the Kenai Peninsula starting to nose in on marginal conditions there around Resurrection Bay and certainly around Homer and Kachemak Bay, pushing up the inlet toward the western end of areas around Kenai and probably Soldotna. Let's take a look at your pass conditions in detail now. Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass we expect to be VFR. Really all the way around the Horn for the Alaska Range, things look pretty good. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass are okay. Rainy Pass VFR. Windy Pass looking to be visual flight rule, as is Isabel Pass for your Wednesday. Mentasta Pass looking pretty good. Heading down toward Tanita Pass, VFR conditions there. Portage Pass looks good, and then we get into Chilkoot and White Pass, and we're already leaning over into that marginal level there, and that should worsen as we get through the rest of the week. Freezing levels show warmer air surging north once again ahead of that wave of low pressure that's heading toward the west coast. It is going to get warmer across southwest and south central once again, especially as we head into Thursday and Friday. The 2,000-foot freezing line just nosing into the northern coastlines of Haida Gwaii, the surface freezing line right over southeast through Kodiak and across the Alaska Peninsula, jogging north of St. Matthew already. Icing potential is low out across the southwest coast, above 2,000 feet. It gets a little bit higher there as you get out toward the central and eastern parts of the Alaska Peninsula and the western chain there, higher in the level of altitude, not the risk level, I should say. Above 1,000 feet across the north and eastern Gulf there, primarily over southeast, and you'll see very little risk for icing across south central, southwest, or the northern or north slope interiors there. The jet stream right now has low pressure sitting well south of the Gulf of Alaska, and that is driving a southerly wind into southern parts of southeast around 100 knots. A ridge is building out here across the North Pacific. That south wind already pushing in warmer air, as we've already seen. A little bit of low pressure sitting across the northern parts of Canada. That's allowing that cold air to filter in, but that should quickly be replaced by that south moving flow. At 9,000 feet, you can see several waves of low pressure across the region, a broad south and westerly flow into southeast, light westerly flow across the interior and the north slope, and building southwesterlies across the western bearing, 60 to 70 knots there. A little bit stronger as you head down into the chain, 50 to 70 knots at 3,000 feet. Another weak wave of low pressure across the northern Gulf and around southeast, still giving us that west and southwesterly flow. Light northerlies across the interior and stronger northerly winds for the Chukchi at 40 knots at this level. So turbulence, we're mainly looking at considerable moderate. Some of that chop may be focused across areas near Sitka and into the interior, below 10,000 feet. Hit and miss chop across southwestern Bristol Bay. The main focus, though, looks to be around the Aleutians, generally below 4,000 feet for considerable moderate tomorrow.
kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the strata starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska. And moving on to sea ice now, you'll notice no big changes here across the Beaufort, of course, but across the west coast we continue to see ice, higher concentration moving west towards St. Lawrence Island, but still hugging the coastline there and all the way down parts of southwestern Alaska, south of Etolin Strait now with some marginal ice. No ice right now that we can see in Bristol Bay, and nothing yet in Cook Inlet, but again, the views from the satellite have not been that great to say that with certainty. But chances are we'll probably get some better views here in the coming days. Here's a look at southeast now. As the winds come up a little bit more, you can see the front pushing in westerlies across the outer coast. 15 to 25, anywhere from 14 to 13 foot seas down across the south, and light winds across the central and southern inside passage. Northerlies, though, in the Lynn Canal, 20 knots with a 4-foot sea on Thursday. No big change there. Southeasterlies continue across the southern inside waters, and winds across the outer coast shift to more of a south and westerly direction, anywhere from 10 to 20 knots and 9 to 10 foot seas there, and 6 to 8 foot seas across the northern Gulf outside of Icy Cape. An easterly flow at 15 knots with an 8-foot sea. Across south central and inside of Prince William Sound, northerlies at 20 knots with a 4-foot sea, gust to 40 across the Copper River Delta region. We'll look for 7-foot seas in the area. A stronger flow over the Barren Islands, northwesterlies there, 30 knots with a 9-foot sea, and northerlies coming down through Cook Inlet, 10 to 15 knots and 2 to 3-foot seas across the region. For Thursday, 15 to 20 knots, looking for northerlies to continue, a little bit more of a northeasterly shift, pulling out of the Kachemak Bay area, 20 knots with a 6 to about 7-foot sea in the region and over the Barrens. Winds diminish a little bit in Prince William Sound down to 10 knots and 2-foot seas with 5-foot seas across the northern Gulf and into the Kenai Fjords region. For Wednesday, look for light winds inside of Bristol Bay. A 4-foot sea is expected there. Southerlies will be strengthening across the southern end of the Alaska Peninsula with an 8-foot sea developing there on a 25-knot wind. Look for southwesterlies becoming northwesterly as you head up the coast. Stronger gusts crossing Kodiak Island with some gusts over Shelikof Strait reaching 35 knots. 7 to 8-foot seas in the area there. Becoming northeasterly on Thursday. Southerly winds down the coast. More of a south and westerly flow working its way up into the peninsula. 20 to 30 knots with a 12-foot sea. Stronger winds will be found out west. As we look at the chain, look for Wednesday's winds to be around 30 to 35 knots, 15 to 20-foot seas in the region. Again, as that front is passing over there, things will get pretty choppy out to the west, anywhere from 19 to 23-foot seas on that 30 to 40-knot wind. As we get into Thursday, no big change. Winds diminish a little bit out here around Adak to Kiska. 20 to 35 knots in most areas, 19 to 20-foot seas in the region. Seas will be a little bit smaller on the north side, anywhere from 8 to 11-foot seas, 13-foot seas north of Unalaska, and generally a southerly wind as we go. Across the west coast, an offshore wind continues over Norton Sound, 10 knots. Look for 35 knots all the way down from St. Lawrence Island to south of Etolin Strait and into the Kuskokwim Delta. 5 to 10-foot seas are possible there. And south and easterly winds will wrap in out of the Pribilofs to St. Matthew, 30 to 40 knots with a 12 to 15-foot sea. That will diminish a little bit on Thursday with winds changing direction. A little bit more of an easterly flow coming in from the west coast. A 30-knot wind in most areas, 20 knots over Norton Sound, and about 20 knots for St. Paul and St. George with that northeasterly wind bringing us 11-foot seas in the region. For Wednesday, the Beaufort Seacoast, 15 to 20 knots in the area, a north and easterly flow blowing through the Chukchi and over some areas with developing ice. Look for a 3 to 8-foot sea there on Wednesday, and again easterly stronger at 35 knots over the Bering with a 10-foot sea around Gamble and Savunga. That becomes 30 knots with 14-foot seas in the open water as we go through Thursday. A stronger offshore flow for Cape Lisburn down to Kivalina. Again, about 4 to 5-foot seas. And over the Beaufort, a light 10 to 15-knot wind blowing in. It will be cold and probably has some flurries and fog with it as well. Recapping tonight's weather around the Juneau area, especially the Mendenhall Valley. A winter weather advisory is in effect, looking for about 3 to 6 inches of snow there if and only if the temperatures are just cold enough. And it'll be close tonight, but watch for snow in the region. Most areas downtown look to be just a little bit too warm for a whole lot of accumulating snow, but you will see snow showers in the region. As we look out west, snow working into parts of southwest tonight and early tomorrow. Expecting to see snow and blowing snow for the Bristol Bay region all the way into the Kuskokwim Delta as we get into Wednesday. Watch for this band of snow to develop with wind as we go through, and it looks like snow showers will continue across the northern Gulf Coast as we get into Thursday. The main focus for snow across the west will be that band, thanks to the warmer air lifting northward and a lot of wind probably working through the central and eastern chain. Unsettled weather will remain across the southern Bering and the Aleutians as we go through the end of the week, and some of that snow will work its way toward south central. In the meantime, the interior and north will remain cold.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.